Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Life in the Red podcast presented by the Lincoln Journal-Star. I'm Luke Mullen, joined today by our sports editor, Nate Head. And this is episode 3 of this season, new season of Life in the Red. Obviously, we've gotten Amy in, our columnist, but we want a little sports editor action. Get the big dog in the room. Obviously, you've been seeing all the football stuff that's been going on. Following along with us, and just we'll get into a lot of the good practice observations. Talk a little big picture today. A lot of big news: the Big Ten media rights. And of course, all the NIL stuff, all the transfer portal stuff we've been seeing all summer, everything that's been going on. So welcome in, Nate, and welcome everybody back to the Journal-Star studios. You get the nice video look if you're watching us on the web. So hope you're all enjoying that.
Yeah, Luke, I appreciate the introduction. You say that you wanted me in here, but we know I'm in here because Amy could not join us today. But I'm a lifelong career pinch hitter, so I can always step in on a pinch and help us out. So what do we got today?
Yeah, so let's just go ahead, jump into some of the practice stuff. Getting the chance to talk with the defense a couple days ago. Today was more an offensive day, so just want to recap some of the information that's kind of coming out during the week. And one of the most notable things I think is on the injury front. Freshman wide receiver DeColdis Crawford. Maybe we could have pushed for playing time. Would have worked its way out during this fall camp, but unfortunately seems to have suffered a very serious knee injury. Head coach Scott Frost said he'll be out for an extended period of time. Hopefully we can get more information, and confirmation if that's season ending or whatever it may be. But definitely he's not going to be on the field here coming out. And really kind of the tough thing, obviously you don't want any player to get that season ending injury, but there's been a lot of buzz about DeColdis, notably his big time NIL commercial just came out. I think is 5 million views all over the internet. A pretty big smash hit already. Yeah, definitely.
I remember when DeColdis committed over the summer, and even then his name and the uniqueness of it was the talk of social media. And then, I think the NIL deal he did was exactly what the whole thing was created for, right? Everybody loved it. It not only did it make waves in Husker Twitter, but it went made its rounds pretty good in the national scene as well. So yeah, it's kind of unfair, and you hope DeColdis comes back strong, but I don't know if he would have cracked the room. There's a lot of players in there. Definitely. But I expect we'll hear something from Frost probably soon regarding his status. Frost usually only talks updates on injuries if it's, unfortunately, if it's like season ending or extended time. So I suspect we'll hear from him soon on that.
Yeah, and we hope all the state's air conditioning units continue running as expected for the rest of the summer. If you haven't gotten the chance to go watch that commercial, make sure to check it out online. He does a pretty good job. Obviously, you get these athletes in. It's a different type of challenge for them to do a little bit of acting. So that's part of the fun with that one for sure.
No, it is, and he even got a little Malachi Coleman. I don't know if you saw on Twitter quoted and asked DeColdis for acting lessons, which DeColdis accepted. He said, "Just come on down and maybe October 22nd, maybe they can get together and work on their acting chops."
Definitely, yeah. So some of the other stuff coming out from practice, a lot of it has to do with the depth chart. The way these different position groups shake out. And one of the most interesting things to me, we got a chance to talk with the defense a couple days ago, and Texas Tech transfer Devin Drew, a guy that they were waiting to get on campus for a while, had to get those academic transcripts, get that cleared from the university. He comes in and you think, maybe there's going to be a little bit of rust, getting used to the new scheme or whatever, just getting back to practice after, a while of just working out on your own. Well, it seems like the initial returns are very good. He's an experienced guy, and already Eric Chinander said he's probably going to get some reps in that Northwestern game, which is really impressive for a guy that just got on campus.
Yeah, it is, and that interior defensive line spot has been a position I've been following this offseason, and with him coming in, the concern is rust, and it's how game ready are they? That's something that Chinander, those guys talk about all the time. In terms of conditioning, in terms of learning the schemes, but Yeah, it seems like he kind of hit the ground running on that first day. I mean, they were
Yeah.
talking about him, within the first couple days, quick. So, it sounds like he might see a couple snaps in Ireland.
Definitely, yeah. And speaking of the defense as a whole, obviously the black shirts, big yearly tradition. I think every coach, every different year, kind of has their own approach. Do you do it before the season? Do you do it week 3? I think even we've seen some late season black shirts, week 6, whatever it may be. But got the chance to hear a little bit. The black shirts, they're coming soon. Whether that's right before they leave for Ireland or as soon as they land. It seems like that seems to be the trajectory that they're planning on for the black shirts. Get them for those defensive leaders. O'Shawn Mathis, a guy. It's kind of interesting. Do you get the transfers of the black shirts right away? It seems like that'll probably be in the mix. Don't know exactly when they are, but coming soon. So look forward for that, folks. And in the special teams field, something else interesting. Obviously, the kick game, the punting game, these were major issues the last couple of seasons. And you get transfers in both spots. Heard from punter Brian Buschini just kind of about his fall camp. And the number one thing, he kept saying he's just having the most consistent fall camp. And, it's some of these interesting little tidbits, you hear from the players themselves because, punting, it seems very simple, right? You just drop the ball and just kick it as far as you can. Well, Buschini said, that was pretty much what he did at Montana. You just, aim for the underside of the ball, let it fly. Well, last couple months, talking and, harnessing some of the information, former Nebraska punter Sam Cook, Baltimore Raven, Johnny Hecker, Los Angeles Ram, they aim for the hole in the ball where you put the nozzle in, fill it up, aim for that tiny little spot. You'd think that would be very difficult, but these high-level punters, that's what they're aiming for, and so far Buschini's done a good job in practice.
Yeah, it's an interesting tactic. I in my punting days, I just drop the thing and try not to kick the laces. But yeah, hearing some nozzle talk was definitely interesting from those guys that actually know what they're talking about. And you're right, it seems like such a simple thing, but those guys have it down to a science. This is a very small impression on the ball that is not even there at the blind gaze. And this is what they're aiming for. You almost wonder that you aim for this little small thing and then you mess it up or whatever. But yeah, there's been a lot of Buschini talk, a lot of punting talk. What offseason have we had so much talk about the punter and the kicker and special teams, man. That's controlled a lot of the conversation and as it should. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like, obviously, in Ireland. So, and
definitely the weather conditions too. The day that we got to talk with Buschini and some of the other special teams guys, it was foggy. It was a little bit damp outside, pretty similar to what they'll be expecting in Ireland. So we'll see, how the weather kind of plays into that as well. And one of the other things, on an injury front, Turner Corcoran was out for a few days. A little bit of questions about the O-line. If he's missing, how does the line shake out? But he's been back at practice. And one of the interesting things is it seems like the plan for Corcoran is to slot into that left guard spot. Obviously got a little bit of game time at tackle last couple seasons. Thought he might have been the right tackle. And maybe if he was healthy the entire offseason, it's hard to say if that was an initial plan or kind of a plan B. But it sounds like Bryce Benhart going to be that right tackle. Corcoran in there at left guard, so we'll see how that shakes out for Northwestern. And speaking also in terms of players in different positions, seems like we have a new position on the roster today. Ramir Johnson, we know he's been working with the wideouts, been working in kind of that slot role, a little bit of time on special teams as well. So question was posed to him today, are you a running back? Are you a wide receiver? He says, you know what, forget about it. I'm a wide back.
Yeah, I appreciate that. He's just, as you mentioned in your story today that we'll be posting really soon, this afternoon is the wide back was popularized by Deebo Samuel in the NFL. And, he's a guy that will, line up in the slot and kind of quick hitting passes, right? Just kind of getting the ball in his hands. But then we'll also, carry the ball too. And they can trust him. Ramir Johnson, is not a guy that fumbles often or he's just a steady reliable guy, and why wouldn't you want to feature a guy like that in your offense? So, but that's one thing that I think will be really neat to see how they, what exactly that looks like. Wan'Dale Robinson kind of comes to mind.
Oh, for sure.
Obviously, I don't think they ever called him that, but that was another thing where we had to kind of think, okay, is he a running back? Is he? It just kind of changed game to game, and I bet that will be the case with Rahmir. I mean, if he's ripping off big chunks in the run game, they'll probably just keep feeding him the ball that way. But I mean, they have a lot of guys in that running back room, so maybe they feel really good about a couple others, but still want to have Rahmir in a kind of a prominent way. So.
I think that's kind of what it sounded like. I think that decision to kind of have him catch some passes to operate out of the slot, it wasn't so much as like, hey, we don't have enough wide receivers. It was more like we're going to have 4 or 5 running backs competing for time. Rahmir's already a good pass catcher.
Yeah.
How do you just get your best offensive weapons the ball as much as possible? Obviously, we saw that with Wan'Dale, like you said. So it'd be interesting to see, how much time does he really spend? I think, on a lot of third downs, he will have that third down back role, so he could be in the backfield a lot. But on those opening early downs, could easily motion out to be in the slot, or perhaps, not even be on the field at all for some of those more run-oriented drives. So will be very interesting to see, but, good to hear from him a little bit about that role. And the wide back, we'll look forward to seeing that in action.
Yeah, it's a new word for us.
Yep.
I was trying to determine if that was one word or two. I think you went to, I don't know. Well, maybe we can ask Rahmir how he spells it, if he likes one word or not.
That's right. So I think those are kind of the main points to hit on for practice so far. What we've heard, obviously, we'll get the chance to hear a little bit more on Sunday and before the Huskers depart for Ireland. Really coming up here soon. We'll hit you with another podcast, another final update Northwestern preview. But for now, I think it's time to talk a little bit of the big picture. Go back to some of the stuff that we went through in the off season and some big news that happened right today. So let's just start with it. The Big Ten media rights officially finalized. We've been hearing about this. Fox, CBS, NBC, all these titans. Forget about ESPN, Big Ten blazing their own path with this stuff. We'll run you through some of the details. I have them right here. But Nate, just your initial thoughts. I mean, what a great situation for the Big Ten, don't you think? Having that platform to have your prominent collegiate athletics on 3 of the biggest sports channels possible. Oh
yeah, I mean it's NBC, CBS, and Fox. I mean they got the 3 biggest names really out there. Yeah, obviously ESPN and ABC has done a ton for the Big Ten, and some of the best and biggest Big Ten games have been on that channel. The Big Ten Championship in Indianapolis has been on that channel. But yeah, what I think how it's being framed is that now they'll have the opportunity to be in all major time slots throughout a Saturday, throughout a college football Saturday. So essentially, the Big Ten will have a game on from the 11 o'clock window to late night. Was it 9:30 or 9? So. And all 3 of those are going to be on a prominent network. So that's how they've positioned themselves in a way that just exposure. You turn your TV on and you're going to see a Big Ten game. The CBS one is the one that's going to, I think, take a second to get used to because when you turn CBS, you're thinking SEC, right? You're thinking a classic SEC game. I mean, I could just hear it now. Amy actually wrote a column today that kind of got me thinking that way. I mean, you hear the music, their tune, and you just kind of think that Alabama and Georgia are going to come running out. So it's going to be definitely strange. But yeah, I'll have to make sure I have my Peacock membership updated.
Right. Yeah, so let's just run you through some of the quick details right here. The new agreement begins July 1st, 2023, runs to the end of the 29-30 season. No official value on the overall deal was released by the Big Ten. ESPN reporting it at $7 billion, Wall Street Journal at $7.5 billion for the overall streaming package. And in terms of the different channels, what these games are going to be on, Fox will keep its big noon window, 11 o'clock Central for those kicks. CBS will have the 2:30, pretty similar with how they operate with the SEC now. That'll be 15 total games per season starting in 2024, including a Black Friday contest. Not sure if that'll be the Huskers or if they're looking for a different game in that one. And NBC will get the primetime window, again, 14 to 16 games per season on NBC. And as you alluded to, some games will be aired on NBC's streaming platform Peacock. Channels will also rotate broadcasting the Big Ten title game, and BTN, classic Big Ten network, still air football, still airs basketball. Obviously, in terms of football, maybe some of the less desired games that they're not going to put on national TV, but you're looking for soccer, softball, baseball, all those other sports, still be on Big Ten network, still that same spot where you're used to. And I guess just, my thought on it is, it's a goodbye to, ESPN and ABC. Like you said, I mean, these have been the channels where Big Ten, even just Husker stuff, obviously Big 12, Big 8, I mean, that stuff's been going on for a while. That was the place you'd go to. And, we're on to a new frontier. It's a new era of college football, so I don't have any issues with it. I think it's a net positive there for the Big Ten for sure. And what's interesting to me, too, is, I mean, it's only a 7-year deal. I mean, the Big Ten will be in very good position to renegotiate another valuable TV contract when that runs out in 2030, when the ACC's deal with ESPN is still going on that they agreed to a while ago. So from a conference-wide perspective, it's a huge boost. It's what got USC and UCLA interested, that big TV money, and just expanding the brand overall.
Yeah, I think part of it was the per school payout was getting up there to $100 million per institution, and that's a big jump from what it was, which it was already I think 60 or 60, 70, 75 million. But so obviously that's a considerable difference, and one thing I wondered about is now what happens to the SEC. So do the SEC and ESPN just now kind of have to link up, or where are we going to see SEC football in the next couple years?
Yeah,
where are they going to go? I think they're going to have to go to ESPN now.
It's got to be the ESPN brand, but I mean really it's kind of they've kind of been reaping what they sow here. They've been pushing the SEC for a while, for quite a few seasons now.
True. So they're going to get their wish now, I guess.
Exactly. And Big 12 in the mix there too. Probably continue to be on ESPN. We'll see how that shakes out. But Big 10 will be all over. That'll be what we look forward to the next couple of years. Again, starting next summer, next July, final year as it is here for the 2022 season. And now I want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing during the off season. Nate, this is something we've all put in a lot of time into. Our Husker Extra special section titled Shuffling the Deck comes out this Sunday, talking about all the different changes going on in the program this off season. A little bit of poker, a little bit of casino theme, in terms of the different stuff we've got going on. But NIL, transfer portal, some of these major trends is really what we tried to dig into. You just want to share a little bit about how we kind of came up with that idea, what we wanted to kind of focus on?
Yeah, so when we sat down and considered this year from a big picture approach, what stood out was change, right? You got the new coaches. You have Nebraska making a significant splash in the transfer portal this offseason, and then you have NIL, really coming to the forefront both here locally. Nebraska's been all over NIL. They're a major player in the game, as we know, and it's also dominated, from a national standpoint too. So it's kind of a three-pillared approach in terms of those three changes that we're seeing. Some of them are specific to Nebraska being the coaches, and some are widespread, such as NIL. But that's kind of where shuffling the deck. There's a little bit of shuffling the deck going on, I would say. I'd say it's a fair assessment. And we had some fun with it. We have a stack of poker chips from 1 to 10 to rate the intrigue of the games. I think Oklahoma's was the highest. Well, actually, I think Ireland probably was probably the highest chip count. A little bit more than I think Georgia Southern game, but Yeah, we had a lot of fun with it. Obviously, a lot of work went into it, but yes, that will be on your local newsstands on Sunday morning. So go out and give that a look. Yeah, do you want to talk about a couple things that are in there?
So I think, kind of the main thing to focus on is NIL. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about the portal as well, that, that's here to stay. But this was, I think, the first real off season where NIL was dictating so much of where players wanted to go, whether that's out of high school or in the portal, obviously. But there is huge earning potential at some of these major college football powers, not just Nebraska, other major Power 5 schools. And, I wrote kind of a lengthier story about it that you can check out in the special section about how a lot of coaches are, they're 8-12 months in and they're saying, hey, we really got to get some rules around this thing, make sure that it doesn't spiral out of control, which admittedly I don't think is necessarily there. Kind of the concerns that these coaches bring up are that the NCAA guidelines for NIL are very vague, which is on purpose from the NCAA. They're saying, hey, we've instituted this program, we're not going to necessarily be the regulators. They've had a lot of regulation in different arenas that hasn't gone over too well. So per the NCAA, it's pretty simple. The NIL funding can't be based on-field performance, and the other big thing is that the student athlete has to give something of value in return for the NIL funding, which generally for everything we see is some sort of public endorsement, some sort of social media post, anything like that could definitely qualify.
The camps.
Yes, camps. Yes, you can host programs. Obviously, we've seen. We'll get into some of the efforts Nebraska has, but they kind of have an NIL marketplace where, kind of similar to Cameo or some of these other sites, you can get your favorite Husker athlete. Whip out the smartphone. Wish you a little happy birthday, whatever it may be. So plenty of cool stuff going on in that regard. But kind of the flip side is you get these different players, and the reason I think that coaches have issues with it is if you're in the portal and you're looking at these different schools and you say, hey, at this one school I might be able to earn, $50,000-$60,000. Other school, $250,000. I mean, there's no question what you're going to be doing. So it's really changed, I think, a lot of the focus, at least in terms of recruiting and transfers away from where am I going to be the best fit to play right away, to contribute on the field, earn playing time. A lot of it now is what's my earning potential, which, for the athlete is a net positive without a doubt. That's the kind of thing that we have to take into consideration too, is that this kind of Wild West, as some people have called it, the craziness where the players kind of hold all the cards. I mean, it is very, very player positive in that regard. Yeah.
So the big idea is that you're not supposed to use it as a recruiting chip. Essentially, you're not supposed to throw out dollar figures to people, but these athletes obviously are tight knit, and they talk. And Casey Thompson, I think, went on that. He kind of made a headline or two when he was on the one of the Barstool podcasts and said something about earning potential for a starter at Nebraska was 6 figures. So people see that and they think, oh well, if I go and start at Nebraska, I could make what Casey Thompson said I could make. So obviously that's bled into recruiting, even if it wasn't supposed to. It's definitely happening, and that's what you're getting to. That's why these coaches are asking for some guidance, some more clear-cut rules. I mean, I know you wrote about Jimbo and Nick Saban, kind of going back and forth because one accused the other of pretty much buying their team. Is that how that went?
Definitely.
Who said it about who again?
So it was Saban about Fisher.
Okay.
Because A&M obviously a very historic college football program, but just gone 8-4 the year before. I mean, they're number 1 overall in the class. I mean, they must have had 6, 7, 8, 5-star blue chip recruits. Saban kind of threw that out there. A couple weeks later, he was like, "Oh, I didn't really mean it," but obviously at the time he really meant it.
And damage was long done. That'll be a game to watch on whatever network it's on. So what else we got?
Yeah, so I think the other main thing, kind of touched on it there, is NIL collectives, which are a lot different than any sort of individual endorsement or individual deal that these players get, because you get a collective, and obviously, this is a college-wide rule. You can't have a collective associated with the university. Yeah. It has to be, through some private entity. Any individual can start up a collective, but kind of the situation that we have playing out at a lot of different universities is that these different collectives, they'll kind of offer a base NIL deal to scholarship players, because again, you can't say, oh, if you're a starter, can you get this deal? So scholarship players, or just anybody on the roster who would maybe be interested in that type of setup, can go ahead and do it. Here in Nebraska, we've seen one of those, the Big Red Fan Club, and this is I like what they're doing so far. It seems to be very similar to kind of the NIL marketplace that Nebraska had set up. The fan club, seems to be personal greetings. Players might be able to come to an event if you want them to do that. Again, that kind of stuff where you get to know the players a lot more. You get to really get a sense of them, and perhaps get a personal message. On kind of the negative side, there are a few different, I think, NIL collectives across the country. I don't want to call out any by name.
No, let's do it. Let's call them out. And what are they doing?
Yeah, so I mean, it's just very, very vague. You don't know what's going on. You have, I'll name one because I put it in the article, but the Matador Club at Texas Tech. They say they're giving $20,000 to $25,000 to these players. And NIL funds, completely valid. The only thing that they have to do is complete some community service.
Wow.
So I mean, it's fair. It's allowed per the rules. How much community service? I don't know if that's 2 hours at the soup kitchen or 2 hours every week. I mean, that's a big difference in that one.
Yeah, I have a feeling they won't be on the highway picking up trash for an hour.
Yeah.
But interesting. So they were able to put a dollar amount up front for these. For these athletes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
For sure. So it just is kind of interesting to see where some of that stuff will end up, settle in a year or two. Also got a note here at Nebraska, athlete branding and marketing, kind of the main collective for Nebraska athletes. On their website, they've raised over $5 million in NIL funds already in a year. So just going to show kind of the earning potential that these athletes do have here at Nebraska. Obviously, could change a lot, over a year or so. A lot of it could go, to the on-field performance. It raises or perhaps lowers your marketability for some of these different deals that they want to make. So that's kind of the stuff that we wanted to dive into with NIL. I'm sure if we were going to revisit it next year, it might be in a very different spot. And so it'd be the transfer portal. This is something we've seen for a couple seasons now. This past year, and I guess the last couple years, it's definitely exploded in a way we've kind of never seen before. A lot of that has to do with COVID. A lot of that has to do with the removal of you transfer and you have to sit out. It's immediate playing time now. So we've seen all those factors, and Nebraska very, very aggressive in the transfer portal this year. What I have to wonder is, how much of that was necessity, having a lot of different experienced guys out, knowing it's a huge, must-win season, and how much of that is just, this is going to be the new recruiting. You'll get, maybe 12, 13, maybe 15, high school guys, and then that much or more from the portal as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is a mixture of both. Some of it was out of necessity, and some of it is, and I think Frost has said this at least on a couple occasions, that this is the new normal, and that's and a lot of coaches join him in that and sharing that sentiment. But there's a point this offseason. This is an example of necessity. There was a point this summer where Nebraska only had like 5 true defensive linemen, like down linemen. I know edge is a prominent thing this year, but so there they had to get guys. They had to get Devin Drew and Stephen Wynn and players like that. Casey Rogers went, and a couple to graduated. So some of it's necessity, and but then they went and just got players that they think can just help them, such as like Trey Palmer. I mean, they probably didn't need another a bunch of receivers, but they went out and got guys that they think can change games, and I think that's a big part of it as well.
Definitely, and I mean, I don't want to fully call it free agency because it's not a totally accurate description of what's going on, but I mean, if you think about that kind of open market where you've got different programs, and there's a big difference between picking up an 18-year-old high school kid who might need a year or two just to get up to the playing weight, to learn the system, versus a 22 23-year-old guy who's been playing high-level college football for 4 or 5 seasons. So I really like it because I think it gives a lot of versatility to the coaching staff. I mean, what are your needs? What are your desires? How much long-term vision do you have at the current moment? I don't think it's going to be a full-scale change for how we see high school recruiting. I think that'll continue. I don't think that the portal is going to destroy that at all. It just gives different priorities for different schools, and I think what we're seeing here in Nebraska might continue. A little bit of 50-50. Depends on the year if you're going more high school or more portal. But there's always going to be good guys available in that transfer portal, and that'll be something that they look forward to keeping their eyes on.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're seeing it in all the sports. I mean, you obviously cover the baseball team, and I mean that's a team that's really hit the portal hard, and volleyball made a big one with the Caitlin Horde from Penn State. So it's just how it goes now.
Yep.
And there's going to be you can expect at least 8 to 12 probably, I would think, moving forward each off season, and that's probably light, all things considered. So,
For sure.
And necessity is, I think, a big thing too. They had to go out and get a kicker and punter, and that's what they did. So
yeah, absolutely, and that's just the bright thing too. Your 4-year starting quarterback goes, and suddenly you can get a guy who's played some major college football last season. Big Power 5 team, top 25 team. So, like I said, it gives you a lot of different options. Really sets you up for success, perhaps, if you hit in the right spot.
Right.
So, those were kind of the main things that we looked for in that preseason preview. NIL, transfer portal, new coaching staff. Obviously, look for. We've got opponent breakdowns, projected depth chart, things to watch, several different stories. So make sure to look for that this Sunday. And I think that'll do it for us at Life in the Red today. Like I said, we'll join you again next week. Northwestern preview, look ahead to some of the different things that we have going on and some of the different practice observations that we have in the final week. And for Nate Head, I've been Luke Mullen. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.